So, where were we? January 11th, 1991. We have our first WBO heavyweight title fight of the 1990s. Francesco Damiani from Italy put his title on the line against Ray Mercer. Now, Ray Mercer was a hard-hitting heavyweight. I mean, really hard-hitting. This guy, he took Olympic gold at the 1988 Games in Seoul, South Korea. And while Damiani was a decorated amateur as well, he'd taken silver at the 1984 Games in Los Angeles. Now, this fight, it's a forgotten gem that happened in the 90s. Damiani controlled most of the fight with his superior boxing skills. He was too fast. He was putting combinations together, and Mercer looked very sluggish. He looked very one-paced, very slow-footed, and he was just going for one-punch knockout power, which he got in the ninth. He landed a picture-perfect left uppercut, which smashed Damiani's nose to pieces. Damiani went down like a sack of shit, straight on his front. His nose was pissing blood. He got counted out, and that was that. Ray Mercer was now the new WBO heavyweight champion. Now we skip forward a few months to April the 19th, 1991, at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Evander Holyfield would put his undisputed heavyweight titles on the line against George Foreman, who was 42 at this point. Now, George Foreman, as you all know, was the former heavyweight champion. He won the title from Joe Frazier in 1973. He lost it to Muhammad Ali in 74, and he retired in 1977. He came back after 10 years out in 1987 and embarked on a much laughed at kind of comeback, really. And he beat a lot of sort of has-beens, never was, never weres, that kind of thing. And he worked his way into getting this opportunity to fight Evander Holyfield for the WBA, WBC, and IBF heavyweight titles. Now, when the fight started, Holyfield was just outworking Foreman. Foreman was taking too much punishment. He was getting battered all over the ring. People thought he was going to get stopped. He was slow. I mean, he was slightly over. He was very overweight compared to what he used to be. Gone was the chiseled body, and he'd obviously got soft with all the years out of it. He put a lot of weight on. Foreman would have a go though. He was throwing sort of single shots every night. He'd land a sort of clubbing right hand or a left hook to the body, some of which was straying low, and Holyfield was just unloading left and right hooks to head and body. He was knocking Holyfield all over Foreman all over the ring at one point. However, in the seventh, Holyfield, he threw a left hook, and Foreman countered over the top with a straight right hand, which actually shook Holyfield, and it was just a fantastic. Suddenly it was like, wow, could the old man finally do it? Now I say old man, it's quite funny because he was 42 years old, and everyone was talking about how old he was and past it he was, and he's an old man. I'm fucking 41 now. And I'm not an old man. I don't consider myself an old man. I might look like one, but I don't consider myself one. Anyway, Holyfield battled back, and he landed about a 15-punch combination to the head, which I'm amazed George Foreman fucking took. He was all over the place. His jaw was swollen. He was bruised and battered, and it became a war after that. Holyfield was landing more punches. He was more accurate. He was more devastating. But Foreman was just plugging away. He was firing these straight right hands. His jab was pretty devastating, and his left hooks to the body. Now, in the 11th, as I said, a lot of these body punches were straying low. In the 11th, Foreman was actually deducted a point for a low blow. And by the end of the fight, it was very clear who had won. Evander Holyfield won an undisputed, He retained his undisputed title and won a unanimous decision. Scores were 116, 111, 115, 112, and 117, 110. So it was competitive, but pretty one-sided at times. So that was Evander Holyfield's first defence of his undisputed titles. Absolutely brilliant. Now, we wouldn't get any more heavyweight title action, until October the 18th at the Convention Centre in Atlantic City. Atlantic City has always been a very popular place for boxing, and it still is. Ray Mercer would defend his WBO heavyweight title against Tommy Morrison. Now, Tommy Morrison, he'd been pro for a couple of years, and he was coming off starring alongside Sylvester Stallone in Rocky V, which has to be, in my opinion and a lot of people's opinion, the worst Rocky movie ever. It is fucking diabolical. But he became a household name because of that performance as Tommy the Machine Gun, which is a terrible, terrible, terrible name for a Rocky character. I mean, it's right up there with Clubber Lang, Anyway, so he was cashing in on his sudden fame and his, Hollywood. Since his flirting with Hollywood, he was going to try and be a heavyweight champion. Now, this fight is best remembered for the knockout. Ray Mercer knocked Tommy Morrison out in the 5th round with one of the most devastating combination knockout punches ever. If you've never seen it, you must have seen it. If you're a boxing fan, you must have seen this on social media, on YouTube, somewhere. You've seen it. It's absolutely devastating. But in the middle, at the start from the start of the fight, Ray Mercer looked sluggish. Again, much like he did against Damiani back in January. He looked just tired. He looked worn out. He looked a bit out of shape. He looked fed up. He looked bored. And Morrison was unloading for the first 3 rounds. He was unloading at will. He was landing his famous left hook. He was smashing right uppercuts, which was snapping Mercer's head back. He was hurting Mercer, and there was blood coming from Mercer's mouth at one point. And it was just very one-sided. He was trying again. He was looking for one punch all the time. He was connecting sometimes, but Morrison was just dominating him. In the 4th, Mercer did finish the round strong. He did land a few hard right hands, and that's when the tide started to turn. And when round 5 started, I think it was about 20, 30 seconds into it, Morrison was backed into a corner by a right hand, and Mercer just absolutely blasted him with about 7 or 8 massive right hooks, followed by a final left, which, when I first saw it, I thought he was fucking dead. I thought Tommy Morrison was dead, or at least paralysed, because he took full-blooded, undefended punches. And the referee, Tony Perez, he actually came under a lot of fire for this, because it was kind of, what was he doing? He was just standing there watching this fucking mugging, this murder happening, before he stepped in and stopped the fight. Absolutely crazy. I mean, luckily Tommy Morrison survived, and he sat on his stool and he got up later on, but he didn't know where he was. He was fucked. And Ray Mercer, this is why his nickname was Merciless. He was absolutely savage. If you've never seen it, go and look at it now. Ray Mercer, Tommy Morrison, vicious knockout, vicious knockout. But a great fight, great entertaining fight, absolutely brilliant. And the last heavyweight title fight that happened in 1991 was on November the 23rd at the Omni Coliseum in Atlanta, Georgia, where Evander Holyfield was from. He would defend his undisputed title against Smokin' Bert Cooper. Now, originally, this was supposed to be the super fight we all wanted at the time. Holyfield was supposed to defend against Mike Tyson. However, Mike Tyson broke a rib or something like that. And then, of course, he was done for the rape of Desiree Washington. So he was arrested and eventually sent to prison for that. So then Francesco Damiani was brought in as a replacement, the former WBO champion we were talking about earlier. But just days out, he suffered a foot injury. So at the last minute, they pulled Bert Cooper in. Now, nobody gave Bert Cooper much of a chance. I mean, he'd had his issues with drugs and things like that in the past. So nobody really expected him to do much in this. And in the first round, Holyfield dropped him with a left hook to the body. So everybody thought, well, this is it. This isn't going to last much longer. And just glancing at my notes, where I blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he dropped him with a left hook and continued to kind of dominate the next round. In the third, Cooper caught up Holyfield with a right hand, which sent him against the ropes. and but Cooper went in for the kill. You know, he'd hurt him, stunned him, went in for the kill. He landed a barrage, one of them to the back of the head, but you know, a barrage of right hands. And Holyfield sort of sagged against the ropes, and it was only the ropes keeping him up. So the referee, Mills Lane. Now, Mills Lane is one of my favourite referees of all time. Yeah, he really is. You'll be hearing more about him in this series, but yeah, he's one of my favourite referees. He's one of the best referees, in my opinion, of all time. Didn't take any shit from the guys, no matter how much bigger they were than him, because Mills Lane was only a tiny guy, but he took no shit from anybody, and that's what I loved about him. And he wasn't frightened to get in between them either. Anyway, he ruled it a knockdown. This was actually, although he didn't touch down, he was sagging against the ropes. This was actually the first time Evander Holyfield had ever been dropped as a professional. So a little bit of history in this one. He survived. Cooper went for the finish, couldn't get it. It was basically a brawl. From then on, yeah, they were just tearing into each other. Absolutely fantastic. Much better fight than anybody expected. Cooper was brave, he was strong, he was vicious. He was desperately trying to get to Holyfield, and Holyfield was struggling. He was struggling in there, and maybe because, you know, he got complacent going in because he was expected to win anyway. Maybe because obviously everybody wanted Tyson. He was preparing for Tyson, and then Damiani. And anyway, by the 7th round, that's when the end came. About 20 seconds left in the round. Evander Holyfield landed about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 unanswered vicious uppercuts, left and right uppercuts. And Cooper was hurt. Cooper was stunned, but he wouldn't go down. How he stayed on his feet, I will never know. You know, you watch it. It was fucking fantastic. He took full-blooded left and right uppercuts, and just wouldn't go down. But he was hurt, and in the end, Mills Lane, he stepped in to wave it off, and Evander Holyfield retained his WBA, WBC, and IBF heavyweight titles. So we finished the year with Evander Holyfield as undisputed champion. However, Ray Mercer vacated the WBO heavyweight title, so that by the end of 1991, that title was vacant. So that would be up for grabs next time. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Sorry I was tripping over my words a couple of times. I just get so into it, the memories flood back, and I get my words all mixed up. I've got some notes that I made, so just glance at, but I get so into it and I kind of stumble over myself, so I do apologise. It's just my passion. I hope you enjoyed this one. As again, the next series will probably come out next week. Next series will come out next week. 1992. What a fucking year that was. What a fucking year. Right, take care, folks. I'll speak to you soon. Hope you're all well.